this episode I will be showing you how to create inventory GUIs and item stacks. This will allow us to create a number of different inventories that we can call with a simple method. It is useful to know how to do this because we can easily make our plugins more user-friendly. Getting started, what we're actually going to want to do is first create another package. I'm going to name this LZ4.GUIs because I'm going to name it after my first package, well, my username, and then GUI because it's going to be GUIs. So inside of here we're going to create some classes. I accidentally created an interface by accident, but make sure you create a class. I'm going to name our first class names. I'm going to get a second class and name that items. This is where we'll put our items, and our next and final class will be GUIs. But in this will be where we create our GUIs. I'm just going to fix this. So go to your item class and we're going to start creating our methods to create items. So to do this, we're going to create a public static item stack, and this will be our method to create our items. I'm going to name them icons. Make sure you import them as well and get the right import. Now we're going to make the method require a material for which our block will be, and it's also going to require a name. And import the right material as well. Now you will notice an error, and that's because we need to return it, but we will return the item stack, so this does not matter yet. So if we create an item stack and name it icon, we can create a new item stack with the material. Next, what we're going to want to do is we're going to create the metadata. So we're going to put item meta, and then I will name it icon meta, and then create a new icon dot get item meta, and this will get the metadata of our first item, the one that we created in our previous line. On our next line, we're actually going to want to set some meta. So if we put icon meta dot set display name, we will set the display name of the metadata, and the metadata is the metadata of the icon. So we're going to want to translate the color codes to make sure that we actually get color in our name. And then as our argument one, we'll just put the name. Now we need to set the item metadata to the item. And then we return the icon, so whenever we call that method it will create an item stack for us and then return the icon. This is useful for if we create a lot of icons, so we do not have to keep repeating the same code over and over again. But this does not allow us to create coloured icons such as wool or stained glass, so we're going to create another method called create colour icons. Now this will need material, but first we will need a dye colour. Now this will allow us to set the actual colour. I'm just going to name it wool colour, but this can be anything such as stained glass panes, or actual wool. We will need a block and the name. Make sure you import them. Now again we've got an error because it hasn't returned anything, but that does not matter. As you can see above, we have only actually changed the method one little bit by adding a dye colour attribute. So we're going to want to create the icon with the method we used before, with the block and the item name. And this is actually a very simple method because we don't have to put a lot into it because the part below, above does this for us. So we're going to want to actually make that an item stack. Now if we set the durability, this will basically set our colour. So we can just put stack.set durability wool colour. Don't get wool data. Never mind. Now we're going to return the stack. This is actually all of our methods for our item class, and these will support creating any item that we like. Now I'm going to show you how to actually create an item. So we're going to actually want to make it public so we can view it from any class. It needs, yeah. I'm not sure if we should make it static. I'll just make it public for now. We can go back to change it later. Now I'm going to call it item 1, and it's going to be create icon because we want to create an icon. I'm not going to create any wall colours because I don't want any wall colours, but you can create that if you want. So if you do that, you can see every single block. So you can set the block and then the name. So make sure you put this in speech marks so it's a string, or it will not work. You can use colour codes because we added the translate alternate colour codes earlier. So if I do that, it will come out as green and bold a grass block as the item's name when it is put in a GUI or an inventory. Now I'm going to create a couple more icons and just name them item 2, 3, 4 and 5. I'm just going to create them different so we can actually see the differences in the items and show that they're not all the same. You do not have to do this though, you can create as many or as little icons as you like. And don't forget to change the names. I actually forgot to change the colours, but you do not have to, or if you do not want, but you can. You don't even have to set a colour. Next I'm going to actually quickly show you how to create a coloured piece of wool. So if I do this, you can see all the different colours that we can possibly set it to. So say if we chose cyan, and then we have to set it to an item which can support colour such as wool or stained glass. And then we're going to want to set the name, so I'm going to set it to a colour cyan, so at 3 I think that is, and cyan wool. I'll set that to bold. What we're going to want to do is we're going to want to navigate to our GUIs class. And this is where we'll actually create our inventories. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to create a public static inventory, and this will be our method which creates our inventories. I'm actually going to set names for the inventories first. So if you go to your names class and actually create the strings for the names, this will be the text that appears on the top of your inventory. So I'm going to create them called inventory 1 name, and make sure you use chat color dot and not translate, because it will check for the symbol and not the color. So if you want to use multiple colors, make sure you use the .toString method that I showed you about 2 tutorials ago, and copy it like this and everything should work. I'm going to quickly create 3 inventory names just so we can have multiple inventories. So now we will want to go back to our GUIs class, and in this class we're going to continue making our method. So we are going to want to take in a player because we need to know who we are actually giving the inventory to. And we also may want to check for permissions so we can remove an item if the player doesn't have the permission. So I'm just going to return null for now because we don't have an inventory to return, and I don't want to have to see the error message while I'm making it. So we're going to create an inventory, and to do that we're going to put inventory 1. So we're calling inventory 1. What we're calling making an inventory called inventory 1. Now we're going to create an inventory and then set the size. Now this has to be a multiple of 9. And then we are going to want to put our title. So we put names because that's the name of our class with the names in, and .inventory 1 name because this is our first inventory. We just created the names in the names class. And to do items, we are going to put inventory 1 .set item. The slot that it's going to be in, it starts at 0 and not 1. And then we're going to want to make our items. Though I've actually forgot to make the items static. Make sure you do this. This will basically allow it so we can actually use them. And then you can see our different items. So I'm just going to set a couple of random items to this. I'll set all the items for this class. And make sure to change your slot or they'll always override each other. And it will end up with just the last one that you set. So, oh, we don't have an item 6. And make sure to return your inventory. I forgot to do that, but I will be doing it in a minute. And just change your method names and it should all work. And your inventory names. Then I'm going to remove a couple of items so you can actually see the differences in the GUIs to prove they're not all the same. And then, like I said earlier, you've got to return your inventories. So return inventory 1 because that's what we've named all of them. And that is actually our GUI package done. So now if we want to create an inventory, go to your command or your event, whichever way you want to create the inventory, and do player.openInventory, and then we are going to want to put in GUIs dot create inventory, and that will create inventory number 1. And then we're going for the create inventory, we're just using the method that we used in the GUI class to figure out which inventory to actually open. So here I can call create inventory 2. So now what we're actually going to want to do is we're going to actually want to go to Minecraft so you can see that this works. So when we join, we've actually got the welcome message from the events tutorial. So when we run our commands, like I'm saying in chat currently, it will open up our inventory. And here's something that I actually forgot to do. In our plugin.yml from our first tutorial, we actually want to set a plugin name or it will have an error when enabled. Okay, so now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create another class in the GUI package. This will be to detect if an item is actually clicked or not, because currently if we click the items they don't do anything whatsoever. This will allow us to run either commands or events or different methods when a player clicks an item. So we're going to want to register our events first so we don't forget later, as I tend to forget to register my events quite a lot. Now when we actually put in the name of the class, we will be asked to import it, and we will actually be importing our package, as you can see. But then we have to implement the listener so that the class can actually have events inside of it. Make sure you save both of the classes. Now what we're going to want to do is add an event handler, as I showed and explained in the events tutorial. And now we're just going to want to create an event, again as shown in the event tutorial, but it's going to be different than the events class, because it's going to be a different event. This will be an event to detect if the player has actually clicked an item in a GUI that we have created. So create a public void on click event, and we will be checking for an inventory click event, and then naming that E for event. Now anytime an inventory is clicked on, it will run the code in here, so make sure you don't accidentally cancel the event or it will stop all inventories working on the server. So first of all we're going to want to define a player. Now we can do this by doing what I've done on the screen. It's not the same as the others because we've actually got to do e.getWhoClicked to figure out who clicked the item, and also import the player and add the cast to it. Now we're going to want to figure out which inventory it is. So we're going to want to do inventory. I'm going to name it inv equals and then e.getInventory. So we've got the inventory. And then we're going to want to put the title of the inventory so we can figure out if this is the correct inventory that they are clicking on and that the inventory is actually in our plugin. And now we're going to want to actually make to check if it's the correct inventory. We can do this simply by doing this. This is basically saying if the name of the inventory is equal to the name of the inventory we made, it will run the command, or whatever code you put inside of it. But if it's not going to do anything, because we don't want to accidentally make it so when you open a chest you can't move any items around. Unless that's what you want, you could do that. So we're actually going to want to find out what item is clicked to be able to do anything. So we're going to create an item stack called clicked, and then put e.get current item, and then make sure you import ItemStack as well, the correct item stack. Now in our first one, which is where we're going to create our code and just copy and paste it to the others because they're not much different, we're going to want to cancel the event, because if we don't cancel the event then the player will be able to take items out of the inventory, and this is not very good because if you make a shop they may be able to steal the items. So we need to cancel it so they cannot take them. So we need to find out if the item that we created is equal to the item that is clicked, and this will compare the item stacks and make sure that it is the actual right item, and it's going to run this code. Now in our GUIs class you can actually see items here and the slots that they are in, and this may be helpful for different things that you make. For example, again, a shop, maybe a wardrobe, you could do tons of things with it. So we're going to want to just repeat this over and over again until we've got all of our items to make sure that it definitely runs if we if we click on the correct item. Now I'm just going to copy this onto the other inventories because I don't want to spend a ton of time creating these. So if it's this, then I'm going to send them a message every time, because I also don't want to have to spend the time creating a method which does something. But you could create this in a minigame plugin where you have a GUI that says join, leave or change your team, and then you could create your own methods which do that, and the items that are clicked would then run that code. And now I'm just going to copy and paste this again. And that is actually it for our item clicked class. So as you can see, we have actually got the player when we've been creating our inventories, but we haven't had a reason for that yet. So I'm going to show you why now. We're going to add permissions to certain items, so they only actually appear if the player has the right permission. So I'm going to set this so item 1, 2 and 3 will not appear if the player does not have this permission. So I'm just going to set this to i.am.a.permission, and this will check if the player has this and will only put those into the inventory if the player does in fact have that permission. And then else if they do not, and then you can do things in here. For instance, you could create an error item or a no permissions item, as I showed how to create items earlier, and then put them in the slots there, which is a good idea for certain plugins. That is about it. I would like to thank you for watching. Please comment, like and subscribe. Bye.